Have you ever felt throughout your life that you didn't deserve to be seen or heard, or that people like you don't deserve to be broadcasted on the internet? Perhaps you have never seen anyone who looked like you in pop culture growing up, or that you simply grew up in a country where the majority just don't look like you. There could be all sorts of reasons for why someone would develop a fear of being seen. All of those reasons are totally valid. I want to share some advice as to how I am currently working on overcoming this fear of being seen. Hopefully it also resonates with you. Before we dive into those advice that I have for you, I would like to share a little bit of my story to give you some perspective as to why I have reached this point, to just demonstrate, where it all started. For me, growing up, I've always felt like I didn't belong. Someone recently said to me, one of the most beautiful things a human being can experience, one of the most beautiful, profoundly touching, beautiful things a human being can experience on this earth is this feeling of belonging to somewhere, whether it's a culture, a family, group of individuals, your chosen family. The lack of that is the root of so much of our suffering. I don't believe we're put on this earth to suffer. So as you can probably tell from my accent that I am Australian, I have spent a great deal of time, obviously, living in this country. I usually tell people that I pretty much grew up here, but that's not where my journey started. I was actually born in Beijing, and when I was 6 years old, after attending primary school for just a year, I moved to Australia with my parents. So my parents, after finishing year one in Beijing when I was 6 or 7 years old, our family decided to immigrate to Australia, and so I started going to school in Sydney. I went to primary school for a few years here in Australia, and then our family decided to move back to Beijing again. We had to relocate again back to our hometown, and again I spent a few years there and had to come back again when I was about 12, 13 to attend middle school here in Australia. Looking back at my own life, there was a lot of back and forth, and I'm sure a lot of you would have had a very similar experience if you come from an immigrant family, whether it's a country like Australia, Canada, or the US. You'd know the feeling of constantly feeling like you don't belong to any specific culture. Because of that, I've developed a lot of shame towards embracing my differences, my identity as this multifaceted person. As a result of that, I just never felt like I belonged or deserved to be seen. I was never the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Barbie doll that, was celebrated as being beautiful. And for the longest time, I genuinely believed that I was less than a lot of my peers. I did not even go to formal, and for many years I developed an eating disorder that came and went, and it all developed into years of self-punishment. Ironically, that also drove me to become extremely ambitious in my working life. Well, I went to university, I studied film and television because I was so desperate. In retrospect, I realized that I was so desperate to be in proximity to that sort of exposure. I was desperate to be near all of that, even though I knew that I wasn't going to be an actress, and I didn't study to become an actor. I studied to become a filmmaker. Part of it was due to genuine interest. I wanted to be a film director, but a lot of it was also just this desperation to be anywhere near the limelight, to be anywhere near recognition, because I had so little of that growing up. But that's also where the seed of evil was also planted, because fast forward to now, I, for the past 3-4 years, struggled so much to truly be kind to myself. So the seed of evil was planted right there when I started telling myself this narrative that I'm always going to be the person behind the scenes, never the person in front of the camera. When I didn't go to formal and when I hated to be photographed, that was coming from this place of my self-concept that I kept telling myself, which was that I only deserved to be behind the scenes because I was not worthy of being broadcasted. So that turned into working myself to the bones behind the scenes, constantly platforming others, because I deep down didn't believe that I was worthy to be platformed. Many of you might feel the same way, and I am making this video today because even though I am still on this journey of healing that part of myself and overcoming this shame, I've managed to gather a few tips and tricks and few pieces of advice for you, which hopefully will assist you along this journey. So let's dive into advice number 1. Stop looking inwards and start observing the world around you. Observe people, other people around you, especially those who come from very different backgrounds. And this is something I discovered recently while hanging out with this 16-year-old girl who is just the most confident, intelligent, and mature 16-year-old I have ever met. And meeting her was a great blessing because, you know, we were hanging out and this big group of us, the girl and her mother and a few of, you know, acquaintances. We were all talking. This girl, she's half Swedish, was born in Australia, and her family moved to Sweden when she was very young, kind of similar to how our family moved to Beijing again and then back to Australia and back and forth. You know, we sort of bonded over this mutual experience of ours, and I remember knowing exactly what she meant when she said that she never really felt like she belonged to either culture, but I noticed a key difference between her and myself, and that was her entire attitude to being different, to being the person that stands out. And it really inspired me. As we got talking, someone, an adult in her 30s presumably, asked her and said, wow, like, you're so smart for a 16-year-old, you're so intelligent, like, what do you think you're gonna do in the future? Like, what do you want to do? And she said, oh, you know, like, yeah, I know I have, you know, all these talents, and, you know, she's also a great soccer player, but I think she originally wanted to become a professional soccer player, so that's always been in the cards for her. But the way she responded to that question, like, oh, so what do you actually want to do when you grow up, was pretty surprising to me, because she said, oh, actually, I just want to live off-grid, live on a farm with my patch of land and grow vegetables and live a peaceful life, which was a very surprising answer to all of us. But it wasn't that response, it was actually what she said after she gave that response, because she also, on top of that, said, I'm aware that I have all these talents. As you can tell, I'm a very social person. I have great social skills. I'm very good at soccer, I'm very good at all these other things. And she listed out all the things that she thought she was good at. And she was very nonchalant about it. She did not feel ashamed to say that she's good at all those things. And then she said, you know, I'm good at all those things, but honestly, I just want to live a peaceful life. That was what shocked me, was when I realized, hold on, yeah, we have a very similar story. We share this experience of feeling like constantly being an outsider, but the difference is that growing up, I remember feeling so ashamed to say something such as, I think I'm good at something. I remember I felt like it was embarrassing if I said that I thought I was good at this and that. Deep down, I knew that I had talents. I knew that I was a great writer, that I have a great imagination, that, you know, have a lot of creativity, a lot of raw talent. But just that nonchalance she had about admitting that she thinks that she's got all of these talents. And that was such a light bulb moment, because I realized through that you don't have to hide, and it's okay, and no one would think anything bad of you if you just admitted to them or yourself that you are good at what you're good at. And there's no need to be overtly humble just so you can please someone or make someone else think highly of you. And first of all, I don't think you should care about what anyone thinks, But even if you do, I guarantee you, people will actually be more impressed that you are willing to admit what you actually think, because they know that you are hiding something, even if they don't know that you don't actually believe it deep down. It just gives off this bad energy, this energy that is awkward. Whereas if you say what you mean, be honest, and that in itself is courageous, and it makes you feel good because you're not harboring this resentment within. It's like this martyr syndrome that so many of us have. Another symptom that you might have the fear of being seen is that you, as a result, would hate on or judge other people. What ends up happening is that you see someone on the street, and this used to happen to me as well. You see someone on the street, you meet someone, if in some aspect that person resembles parts of you that you dislike about yourself, that you are ashamed to embody, to show, then you have so much hate and judgment for that person because of that. And I remember I used to do that. I used to be so guilty of that. I would see someone who looked like me, who have the same characteristics as me, and instead of feeling, oh, like there's this connection or that there's this feeling of warmth, I would be extremely judgmental to them, and out of nowhere I developed this preconceived hatred. Another reason to overcome the fear of being seen, because no one wants to be around a judgmental person. And chances are, if you have the fear of being seen, and you could still be ashamed of those feelings, of course, like everyone knows that it's bad to be a judgmental person, but chances are, if you have the fear of being seen, you would catch yourself being extremely judgmental towards others. Go out there, seek experiences, people, places, especially people from very different backgrounds as you. Chances are you're gonna bump into someone who is totally unbothered by all the things that bother you. And the moment you meet them, you're gonna be like, wow, this is actually changing my life. So let's dive into tip number 2 for how to overcome the fear of being seen. And that is to get out of self-denial, admit to yourself that you are not taking care of yourself as much as you could. Finally, have the courage to admit to yourself that you have not been taking care of yourself. We live in such a superficial, fake world, and there are so many people telling you that you have to love every part of you, even if it doesn't serve you, that you have to love every part of you, even if it doesn't serve you. So that's what I have a big problem with, because, we're brainwashed into thinking that we don't have to put in the effort that is required for us to actually feel good about our physical body, whether it's our physical body, our mental health, our physical health, and where we are in life. That's the biggest reason why so many of us continue to struggle, because if you are someone out there who aspire to become, whether a social media influencer or a public speaker, a life coach, someone who is required to be seen, or simply to have more confidence, or just to live life more authentically, that is something you need to realize. Those people out there are selling you a lie. They want to keep you down. The truth is, to feel good about yourself, whether it's your physical body or your mental health, you will have to put in the work. And that doesn't mean you have to punish yourself. That doesn't mean that you have to be super harsh with yourself and stretch yourself to the point of not feeling like it's benefiting you. But they're lying to you. If you don't feel good, if you don't look the way you think you deserve to look, that you don't think that you're going through life operating at your highest potential, then of course you don't want to be seen. I think that is the biggest thing that a lot of us have to work on, and I am guilty for this as well. There's been so many periods of my life where I just punished myself by not working out, not eating healthy, treating myself like crap, because I didn't think I deserved to be platformed anyway. What good is it that I feel good about myself, that I feel good in my body, because I'm not going on camera anyway? It becomes a vicious cycle when you convince yourself that it is simply not within your fate to take care of yourself. And a lot of it, I think, also comes down to your parents and how you were brought up, because as a woman especially, if you didn't have a role model, a female role model like your mother, who taught you, or if they didn't teach you the importance of treating yourself right, you're going to go through life just completely devaluing yourself. You're going to go through life with so much trouble taking care of yourself. Because my mother, growing up, my mum would always say things like, oh, I'm not like other mums, I can't afford to buy those nice things, I'm cursed to live this horrible lifestyle. And by no means were my mum in actual poverty. She was never in actual poverty. But what she taught me at a young age was that she didn't deserve to have nice things. She didn't deserve to take care of herself. How other mums can afford to go work out, look beautiful, and she just didn't get to do that. But it wasn't that she didn't get to, she didn't let herself do it. And that was passed down to me, and subconsciously I have lived the same way, because she sees me as an extension of her, and subconsciously we're treating me in a similar fashion, and I adopted a lot of her mindset as well. And even till this day, I struggle with feeling like I deserve to have nice things. Even the cushions behind me, even the cushions behind me, the artwork above my head, the reason why they're here is because I'm on camera. I've built this set to convince myself that I deserve to have nice things. I had to convince myself that I'm building a set with it and I'm not using it for my own benefit and my own leisure. You see how messed up that is? So think back to your childhood. Think about how your parents used to say, what they used to say and do, and how they saw themselves. Because we all have these narratives that we tell ourselves, stories. We're storytelling creatures. We love a good story. We constantly tell ourselves stories about who we are. And chances are your parents had their own internal narrative and they passed parts of that down to you. I never gave myself a chance. I never took care of myself. I didn't think that I would be given a chance to be seen anyway, so I just gave up. And then I wondered why it was so difficult for me, because deep down I knew that I wasn't doing myself a favor. If you know that you need to have a better regime in your life, an exercise regime, if you know that you need to eat better, you need to sleep better, or do all these things that will make you feel better about the way you look, the way you feel, then do it. And that brings me to my third tip, which is think about why you want to be seen in the first place. We live in a very shallow and superficial world. Girls post selfies on Instagram just for the sake of doing it. We are rewarded for the sake of being seen. We want to be seen for the sake of being seen, and a lot of that turns into, again, toxic behavior like plastic surgery and self-loathing, and which in turn makes us more vulnerable to buying and consuming more and more beauty products, to buying more and more clothes, to spend our money on things that we don't actually need. If you are working on overcoming the fear of being seen, I think it's so important to go back to the why. Because the moment you recognize that it is not about how you look, it is not about all the physical aspects of you that's holding you back, the moment you find your why, it sets you free. So why is it that you want to be seen? Why is it that you want to be heard? What is your purpose for being heard and being seen? We all deserve unconditional love, intrinsically. From the day we're born, we deserve to be accepted and loved by those around us. And that is a fact. But when we're talking about the idea of being seen, there's levels to that. There's a level above simply being acknowledged and accepted by our friends and family and those in our society. And it is a gift to be able to step into that role. The role of whether it's a celebrity, an influencer, a YouTube creator, someone who has an audience. And that doesn't come easily, and it never comes easily to anyone. If we're talking about the idea of being seen, of having a platform, then you really need to ask yourself, what is it that I'm bringing to the table? Because again, I truly believe that a lot of our human suffering comes from this bitterness towards what we are not getting, what we are not receiving, and we wonder why we're not happy. We're constantly anxious and There's a lot of resentment around what we are not getting, what we are not receiving. But what we often forget is the value that we are providing to others. And a good example of that, again, is using running as an example. There's a big renaissance happening at the moment of people getting into run clubs and all that. And a big reason of that, people used to be really into weightlifting and how it made their muscles look toned, and how cardio didn't do anything for muscle building and all that sort of stuff. For a while, people weren't running. People were like, oh, don't run. Like, especially a lot of gym bros, from what I've observed, there's this disdain for running. But recently, there's this resurgence of people getting back into running. And the reason why is that when you're running, you're expending energy. And I'm a very avid runner. So there was this one time when I went running at night, I felt so free, I felt so good. It was like after the 5th kilometer when I was finally getting warmed up and I was just sweating, hot, it was humid, but I didn't care because I just felt so free and in touch with my body, in touch with the earth. And I had this epiphany. I realized that, hold on, this is the secret to happiness. This is the secret to joy, to experiencing joy. It is not taking and taking and taking. Everything is mirrored in nature. And what is true for the human body on a physical level is also true for the human mind on a spiritual, mental level. This whole motion of running, of giving myself to the earth, giving myself to the wind, giving myself to the natural environment around me, because when you're running, you're constantly panting, you're striking the ground, you're moving your arms, everything's expansive, everything's on an energetic level, you're giving to the world. And that makes you happy. That creates a sense of joy, overflowing of joy, it makes you feel good. You feel good after that, and you have been giving. So if we apply that to other aspects of our lives, then using the same analogy, you can say that if you're giving, then that is what makes you happy, and not instead of thinking, oh, poor me, why am I still on 90k salary? Why am I not getting paid 100k? I deserve to have more, blah, blah, blah. Just as an example. So many of us, that's what we focus on. We don't think about what we are doing, what we are giving, the value that we are providing. We're so stuck in our own heads thinking that we're just the victim, but you're not the victim. There's a natural mechanism to how things work in this universe and in the world that we live in. And that is mirrored throughout everything, every creature, every tree, every plant. So I highly suggest you to, first of all, acknowledge your own need to be loved unconditionally, which is your birthright. But after you have done that, sit down and really think about how you are serving the world. Someone recently said to me, go to where the greatest need is. Go to where the greatest need is. So think about that. Where are you needed in this world? Instead of taking from the world, taking from nature, which is why, as humans, we have destroyed the ecosystem operating on this taking and taking mindset. My advice for you is to think about the why and how you want to help and how you can better serve the world, because I promise you, the moment you have that nailed down, the moment you understand the why, nothing can stop you. You will become unstoppable, and you will become so fearless, unstoppable, that nothing will get in the way. Everything will fall into place from there. All this anxiety, all this stress and, concern about how you present yourself will simply disappear, because deep down, you know that you are here for a reason and that nothing can stop you, and you will overcome your fear of being seen. And let's embark on this journey together. See you next time.